Hello, so I've been asked to make a system to make the stickman follow the mouse with his hands. So let's do exactly that. So I'm using my IkSystem that I made, the hinge to the IK solver. So now let's briefly again show the idea behind it. So I disabled the animator. And now let's move the target leg. So now the leg is following the target. So what we would do, we would just say take the target of the hand and move it somewhere where the mouse is right now, and we've got ourselves what we want actually. So let's do exactly that. So hello, this is me from the future and we finished the script. So this is a little bit more complicated than just moving this point, because we have the animator and the animator is trying to set this position to be over here and we want it to be over here. So we can just simply move it over here. We need to do it just after the animation is finished, but on the other hand we have the IK solver and it's trying to solve for the animation. So whatever passes first the position would get the new position of the arm. And for this we would need to make a trigger to make sure it always happens when we need it. So right now we have animations for walk and attack, and that means that the animations actually controls the position of those targets, and we want to disable it when we actually control our hand. So very simple fix for it would be to simply override the positions of those targets after the animations is done. And yeah, that's exactly what we're going to do. So I'm going to my controller and I want to go inside the player. Okay, so inside the player stickman, now let's go over here and say when we press some key, set the arm position, the arm target to be the mouse. So I need the camera for this, so let's say public camera. Okay, so this returns the main camera on the scene, so it should be tagged as main camera. Now in here we can say, okay, so I have my controller dot points, and yeah, this is the problem. I need to get the left hand. Okay, so let's go a little bit backwards. I need some way to easily get the poles, the targets, whatever over here. So I would create a new script actually, and let's get a target identifier or something, whatever. Now I would put it simply on here, and now my points would have this thing. Okay, so we would want from this script to actually just load every transform in it and save it inside this dictionary by the name or something like this. For now, let's make it as simple as possible. So targets, new, okay, and in here we want to get all the transforms. So for each var child in transform. So this gives us all the transforms connected to it. We would simply say targets.add child.name. Child should be a transform. So transform child.name and as value the child itself. Okay, so we have this, and this actually doesn't do anything too crazy. So inside the points over here, let's create another target identifier. Okay, and as we don't have anything as init in here, let's create it actually. So public void init, and this would say points dot get. Actually, we can say something else. We would say points dot game object dot add component. Okay, that would make sure we always have this component on the player. And let's in here just make sure the init is called. Okay. So one little thing I made is now I am checking if the identifier exists already on the object, and if not, we would actually call this. And now let's go inside the player stickman, and we want to say when we press the Q identifier, and yeah, we need to set this one to public, and let's identifier. Okay, so I made a little bit of change. Now I have a late update inside the stickman. So basically inside the controller in the late update we call the brain late update. Inside the late update we want to actually check if we press any key, so input.getKey, and get key is if it's already pressed, and keycode.q. So we would say controller.identifier.targets, and what targets do we even have? So let's take the target, this one, and now let's do something like position is equal to camera.screen to world point and input dot mouse position. So we are transforming our mouse position into the world position, and we can see that nothing happens except this point is missing. So if we disable the animator, the arm actually rotates toward our position. So what's happening is our animator is setting the positions of those points, but then we override them in late update, and the IkSystem, the late update over here, fixed update. Okay, so the late update over here, the solve method is probably happening after or before we change the position, so it's too late, and we need to override those positions a little bit earlier. So we can see that we have the Unity engine execution order, and our animation is executed somewhere around here, so it's after update but before late update. And in my case, my IK is executed in late update, so I want to override the animations inside of here. Okay, so yeah, we've got another problem. So I actually need to create a little script that would connect the targets to the actual script. So let's call this IK controller, IK system, hinge to the IK solver, and let's make it public. So this is gonna be a public set and private, wait, get and private set. Okay. So basically it cannot be changed from anywhere except from over here. So here we just want to say void init and hinge to the solver. And okay, so now the solver so in here I'm gonna do if target, so if target exists, we would say target game object dot add component IK controller. Actually we would do the same thing, so if we have no controller we just add it, and if we have, we say over here controller.init. This should be public, and init this. Okay. So there might be a bug over here. Maybe IkController didn't initiate yet. So we need to make sure the target identifier start method is happening fairly late. Do this by going inside the project settings and target identifier, set it to 200 or whatever. Inside my hinge to the IK solver, I would create a method that would trigger, and this trigger would execute inside the solve on the beginning, and then in the IK solver I would just pass the new transform for my targets and stuff like this, the force and whatever, actually just the target. So let's create a delegate, so public void public delegate. So delegates are triggers, so we would say void on solve, and in here we actually need to create this, so public on solve callback on solve, whatever, something like this. And then inside the solve over here we would say if callback on solve not null, we would say callback on solve invoke. So it would call all the methods that subscribe to this one, and in here we would actually say public void on solve. So this can be actually void, and this dot solver on let's pass the onSolve method. Okay, so every time the solve called, this one would be executed, and what we would want over here is something like public void public for public force float force. For now it should be fine. Force equals to, say, 0 public vector free position, and this should do it. And over here, let's say public void update. So we actually override everything. So transform.position is gonna get the position, and another thing we want is public ball active override is equal to false. So if override let's say override p, whatever. So if override p, we would do this, and after all of this, we'd say override p dot is false. So it's only once. So every time we set those positions, the false, the position, we would disable this. And over here, what we're gonna say is say exactly this. Just without this one. And solver.force equals to false. Okay. So this is a little bit messy because we actually need to pass all three of them at the same time. So let's say public void override anim, and let's pass vector free new pose and float new force. So position is gonna be new pose and force, the new force, and the override is true. So a little thing we forgot is solver.active is gonna be true. So we would actually do something, and let's go inside the player stickman and let's copy this and disable all of this. We don't need the late update anymore. We can actually do this in the update. So we got the IK, and let's say IK override anim, and let's set it to be our camera screen toward point, mouse input dot mouse position, and the force, let's say 150. Okay, so I just changed one little thing. The screen position over here would give us the Z position of the camera. So now it's set to 0. And let's see what we've got. So yeah, our arm is following the mouse, just as we wanted. So it took a little bit longer than I thought. But yeah. Now we can attack and move our arm or whatever, and this is how you make an arm that would rotate toward your mouse with anything. So we can say, let's say left arm over here, and Now this should work just fine with the left arm. Okay, so if we attack, nothing happens because we overwriting the animation. And we can obviously do the same thing with the legs. And yeah, this works pretty good. So see you next time.